There's a pretty one, Ulysses. There it is.
Hello, BookTube. I'm Sean the Book Maniac. Welcome back to my channel. Here I am with another episode of Zooming In, which is the series that I have recently launched on my channel, where I engage with bookish social media luminaries the world over about articles that are kind of bookish or literary in focus. And today is a repeat guest, the fabulous Nyambura, joining us from Nairobi. Hello, Nyambura.
Hi, Sean. How are you?
Oh, better now. Thank you. Nyambura has their fingers in many bookish literary pies, including a BookTube channel, a podcast, I think is still coming out, and especially more recently, a fabulous newsletter, which I think the title, let's see if I can get this right. You probably think this newsletter is about books. Is that it?
I know you think this newsletter is about books.
I know you think this newsletter is about books, and it is about books. But there is a twist, and you need to go check it out for yourself to find out all the other stuff that Nyambura's newsletter is about. So we are here to talk about an article that I stumbled upon in the LA Review of Book, I should say on their website, from the July 5th edition. The article is called Technology, Attention, and the Extremely Long Paragraph by Talia Williamson. And it is about all of those things. I'm going to lob the first general question to Nyambura. What did you make of this article?
First of all, it was long, but then I think we've grown accustomed to reading long form on the internet. Honestly, I wanted her as a shtick to or them to have one extremely long paragraph for the essay, just as a statement. But
It's a
I'm
meta
glad
thing.
we got paragraphs because, as our conversation is going to reveal, we both have feelings about long, extremely long paragraphs. So
Great. And the thesis, I believe, and this did read at times like a pretty conventional undergraduate essay, but I'm not going to say anything more disparaging than that. But the thesis is that as everybody bemoans the death of the novel because of the digital age where everybody's attention span is about this long, several writers, and the primary one that she talks about is the German writer Thomas Bernhard, and several people that were influenced by him, are producing narrative fiction novels, novellas, whatever, that have extremely long paragraphs, which she has coined the initialism ELP, the extremely long paragraph, as a way of giving the reader's head a shake and forcing the reader to pay attention for longer periods of time. So that is the overarching thesis. So how are you with ELPs, Nyambura? Extremely long paragraphs. Do you love them? Do you seek them out?
listen, if they find me, I will read them, but I will not seek them out because there's just something about there's a break that a paragraph break gives you. It's right there in the name, paragraph break, and an ELP just takes that away from you. And I think I feel like it's important for authors to how do I say this, to respect the reader's ability to know when to stop or when to carry on or when to keep going, or I know I just said the same thing, and that takes some of that agency, I feel, away from the reader. I mean, I feel the agency feels like a very big word when it comes to reading, but that's what it feels like to me. Like what the ELP does is that it takes some of that agency away from the reader, and I don't like it. I do not like it.
No, I don't. I really dislike extremely long paragraphs or no paragraph breaks. It's enough for me not. If I know that about a book or a writer, I will typically not pick them up. I will not try them. But once I have read books with extremely long paragraphs, if not including books with no paragraph breaks at all. I'm not sure that I've ever finished one. Not one that I can remember. I bailed on Duck's Newburyport. There was a British novel, was it Irish, that was all one paragraph? The way I would put the point that you just made, Nyambura, is they're just not reader friendly. If you can't take a breath, if you can't put the book down, um, comfortably, or you're realizing, oh, you're going to lose your place because you're in the middle of a paragraph because there are no paragraph breaks, it just makes the whole thing, gives me a headache.
No, yeah, I agree.
I did a zooming in chat with Bob the Booker. It was just the other day it went up on my
Mhm.
channel about wither literary fiction and the digital age slicing and dicing our attention span and blah blah blah. So I've just had a very recent conversation about that, and I said, so I'm only going to restate it very briefly here so that I'm not saying the same thing in each episode. But I don't believe that the fact that I don't want to read more than 10 pages of any book in one sitting compromises my ability to engage deeply with the text. So I think the digital era, which has been with us for probably what, 2 decades or something,
Mhm.
has changed the way that I read, but I don't think that it has cheapened or had a negative impact on the way that I read.
I feel like we have variations of this conversation all the time. It's a bit like the do kids these days read conversation, and it's like yes, yes, kids read. See book talk if you know what I'm saying, and so on. And maybe that's that. I think it ties in with what we were saying a bit, like how do you as a writer respect your audience, but also just because people have short attention spans doesn't mean you should clobber them on the head with an ELP. Clobber
Yeah,
them
and
on the head. It sounds so dramatic. I just had myself and I sound so dramatic.
I expect nothing less from you.
You would think that if attention spans are so short and people are more inclined to read text in small bursts, that what we'd be seeing would be a move towards short sentences, short paragraphs, basically bite-sized reading, as opposed to this, or at least what the article seems to say, which is that there's a move or there's a desire on the part of writers to write extremely long paragraphs as a way to capture the attention of readers. It feels counterintuitive. It doesn't
Yes.
seem to make sense to me anyway. If the point of reading, of writing, is to be read by readers, then give readers what you imagine they want. It speaks to something that the article talks about, which is that some of these books are being written by writers for writers, if that makes sense. And well, there's a friend of mine who has this expression about a collateral audience. Some of us just happen to be there and we pick up the book, but we're not the ones the book is aimed at. We just happen to be present. And maybe that's what's going on, because juries, for instance, other writers, there are books that they love that some of us don't love, if you know what I'm saying. There are times
Oh
when
boy.
you pick up something because you've been nominated for a prize, and a bit of you is like, what was going on here? So maybe writers are writing for other writers, and we just happen to be catching strays, as the youth say.
Very interesting. And it's so subjective what counts as literary fiction, and certainly there's a strand of literary fiction that is all about the long paragraphs. I think a lot of it is not originally published in English. A lot of the examples are like Czech author Hrabal, and of course Thomas Bernhard. Many of the examples they're translated into English, but they weren't originally written in English. I don't buy the connection she's making between the two things. I think it's
Mhm.
perhaps a bit forced, but it's interesting to think about. But now that we've thought about it and talked about it, I think maybe I'm not sure that that's the motivation behind these writers producing the texts they have with so few paragraph breaks, that they thought, how am I going to get my readers to break their bad habits of, that are causing them to be unable to concentrate for significant amounts of time. Oh, I know. I'll write novels that have only 3 paragraph breaks in the whole thing. I don't think that's the rationale. She hasn't particularly sold me.
No, me neither. Me neither. I think writers write for a host of reasons. And maybe, as you are saying, because some of these books are in translation, there might be something going on in the original language that means that there's a move towards such books. And some of them are short. I think she mentioned Claudia Pinheiro's writing. She writes very slim novels, if I remember correctly.
Yes,
Um,
two that I'm
and
aware of are.
yeah, quite slim novels, and maybe that's part of it. Maybe it works in certain languages more than others. In the same way, for instance, in English, when you don't put quotation marks, it people have issues with that, but in other languages, it seems to work differently. That could be part of it also. I don't think if I remember correctly, I don't think the article accounted for that. It just said
It did
some of
not.
these things are in translation and so sort of like
It,
skipped
it
on, but
absolutely did
it would
not.
be interesting to consider that.
I will say that one of the things that interested me the most about this article was a reference to a book that I'd never heard of that I want to read.
Mhm.
She references Matthew Rubery's 2022 book called Reader's Block, A History of Reading Differences, which is all about the diversity of ways that people read. And I peeked at the synopsis of that, and it goes quite a bit into various neurological conditions and how they shape the way people read. For example, dyslexia, hyperlexia, synesthesia, dementia. And I think the author is making a larger point about that there is no right way to read, or then there is no wrong way to read, and pushing the boundaries of what counts as reading. The same author has written books about audio booking. So yeah, it sounds like something I would like to follow up. So if there was a transcript of this chat, Nyambura, how many paragraph breaks do you think it
Okay.
would have?
No paragraph breaks, extremely long paragraph only.
That's all one idea, which is it was interesting, but has not converted me into seeking out texts with fewer and fewer paragraph breaks. But I also think that it's probably good for me to finally try Thomas Bernhard. I have his novel, The Loser. It's counterintuitively about the Canadian pianist, Glenn Gould. And I have that one on my shelf. So I'm sure it's all one paragraph, and I will try it, perhaps because of this article. Which paragraph free work of fiction are you going to try next, Nyambura?
I'm going to try Duck's Newburyport actually,
Oh,
mostly because I've had good things about it. And also, just so that I might finish it because maybe I've found that books without quotation marks and without paragraph breaks and so on, they land differently when you listen to them. So I'll
yes,
try listening to it and see if
yes.
that makes a difference.
I still have my copy of Duck's Newburyport. So when I bailed a couple of years ago, I obviously thought, I'll try it again at least once. So yeah, I will. I will do that in the fullness of time as well, but probably not this year. On that happy note, Nyambura, thanks so much for chatting with me about this, and looking forward to having you on again.
Thanks for having me.